What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 50, the big 50. Turns out I didn't actually plan anything, much to the surprise of no one, but that's okay because on this week's show, we're going to talk about one movie, one limited edition bag of M&Ms, and we'll look forward to this week's new releases. This week's movie is Welcome to Marwin, which is a movie that I've been looking forward to for a little while now. I thought the trailers looked really interesting, and I was a little discouraged when I saw that the Rotten Tomatoes thermometer was only at about 27%, which I felt like, I don't know, I was kind of bummed about it, I guess. It's not really anything to be bummed about. You can make a very compelling argument that that particular site doesn't do a great job of telling how good a movie is. It's just a group of critics that think X movie is good. Like, and not to like shit on it or anything, but like Bumblebee is sitting at like a 93%, which feels like these movies are kind of the same. Like, they're not necessarily that great. Like, Bumblebee isn't that far above and beyond any other movie that's out right now. It's just good, and a lot of people think that it's good or good enough to give a positive review. On the flip side, you have a movie like Welcome to Marwin, which I don't think is actually a bad movie by any stretch. I would actually give it a positive review, but I think the overall group would give it like a slightly less than like okay review that would probably register as rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. And so it's kind of frustrating. Like, this movie isn't that bad, Bumblebee isn't that good, but they're on two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Like I said, I would give Welcome to Marwin a positive review. I think it overall is a good movie, but I think it has some missteps and some unevenness that really like takes away from the story it's trying to tell. The story is pretty basic. We follow Mark Hogancamp, played by Steve Carell, who, after a very brutal attack on him, causes him to lose all of his personal memories, meticulously creates a World War II town called Marwin and takes photos with dolls and tells stories in that sort of way. The story itself is fairly simple. It's just kind of a short little chunk of time between like a new neighbor moving in and him having to overcome wanting to face his attackers, and that's kind of the whole gist of it. But that like kind of gets lost in the shuffle, and there are a lot of different things that actually really get lost in the shuffle, including a lot of the characters in the real world. Like, they're pretty well done as far as the action figures are concerned, because this movie spends a surprising amount of time in Marwin, in the CG area, and we get that story, or the mini stories he's trying to tell. I like that the figures inside Marwin are based on people who have helped Mark in real life, and I like the way that is reflected in the art. Fairly early on in the movie, a new neighbor moves in, and she plays a role, and that gets kind of weird, and that's like a weird like side story that doesn't actually make a ton of sense, and kind of makes Mark seem like a little creepier. The neighbor is played by Leslie Mann, who's really, really great, and I actually really like the cast of this movie. Janelle Monáe is in there, and she's fantastic. I wish she was in there more, just because I really, really like her. I also really liked Isa Gonzalez as Carlala and Mariette Weaver as Roberta, two characters that really push him to go to the sentencing, but also seem genuinely interested in his stories and what he's creating. Like, there are multiple scenes where Mark is talking to Carlala about what the news stories are, and about how that process is going, and then Roberta works at the shop where he gets all of the dolls, and she seems like super interested in that sort of thing, and like there's a little bit of a romantic interest with that with that character. And I don't know, I really liked that the people rallied around him, the community rallied around him after this vicious, terrible attack, and I thought it was really, really sweet. The problem is that this stuff doesn't get enough play because we spend too much time in Marwin, which is kind of frustrating. There are also a couple of elements that don't really work super well. I kind of mentioned earlier the romance with Leslie Mann, or Leslie Mann's character. I didn't think that was super interesting, and it made him a little bit creepy. I also think that there's one element of this movie that is not handled super well, and it's kind of a culmination of a couple of different things. There are several different times where it seems like Mark just makes a decision to make a decision because the movie needs to move forward in its plot. And if instead of spending so much time in Marwin, we could spend more time like back in the real world and with his character, maybe we would understand that a little bit more. My main plot point problem with this particular movie, though, is the way they handle his, I guess this would be a spoiler alert, is his pill addiction. They don't handle it super well, and it's kind of one of those weird things where that, like, he has to make a decision to move the plot forward, like that kind of comes back in and kind of bites him in the rear again, where the way that they try to show it, where it's like something is being held over him and he is like in the world of Marwin, his character is being like constantly chased by this character, this other doll who wants him all for herself and so on and so forth. But and that's like supposed to be like an allegory. I don't feel like I'm explaining this very well, but that's supposed to be like an allegory for him having like a pill problem, and it's not handled super well. And also the way they do it is really obvious early on, and when it comes up later and the reveal happens and he's like, oh, you're the reason that this isn't going well, it's like, well, yeah, no, duh. And it's super heavy-handed, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it doesn't work super well. If it was maybe a little more hidden or a little more understated, and again, if we spent more time in the real world, maybe that wouldn't be as big of a problem. But that was one of the things where I was sitting there, I was like, this is the answer. The answer's right here, right in front of your face. It was too obvious. They telegraphed it way too easily. And I thought that really held the movie back. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were interesting. I liked the way the movie played out for the most part. I think it has some structural issues, but overall, I think that it's a really nice story. I love the way the characters encourage him with all this sort of stuff. I think the acting is good across the board. I would have liked to have seen more in the real world as opposed to Marwin, but hey, that's just me. What is in Marwin is super interesting, and I like the way it's done. It looks really cool. They look like action figures in that sort of like, they look like they're from like the 40s or 50s sort of thing, like that World War II era, and they look, the way they look and move is very interesting. I just think that it has some plot points that don't quite stick, some things that are a little weird, and one element that is just a little too telegraphed. But overall, I did like the movie, so I think you should go check it out. Again, avoid the thermometer. It's at like 27% or whatever. I like it. I think it's a good movie. This week's limited edition item, like so many of them before, comes from Target. It comes to us from Target. I believe that's where I got the hot cocoa M&Ms. And I think that's where I got all of the variants of the crunchy flavor contest winners. Never forget, vote crunchy raspberry. That was number 1. All the others didn't matter. I think crunchy mint won, which is actually kind of a convenient segue into what we're talking about, which, put a little far out of my reach, are, shout out to audio, which are holiday mint. And these look like they're just the regular milk chocolate. They may be a little bit bigger, a little bigger size, but I grabbed these. I don't know if they're still available. These have actually been sitting in my cupboard for roughly a month, so exciting. I should probably start by checking the expiration date. Best before September 2019. We're good. We just hit into 2019. Golden. Nice green packaging, Christmassy colors, all that good stuff. Shows you how timely I am with all of these reviews and announcements and things, and I'm hoping that I can get this open while I complete the sentence, but it doesn't feel like I'm going to because this bag sucks. But I'm going to keep talking anyway and hope that it will at some point tear open. Now, don't. Alright, there we go. Oh, these smell good. These smell like York peppermint patties, which are really good because I actually really like York peppermint patties, or like a junior mint, that sort of thing. So it has a nice smell coming out of the bag, unlike some of the holiday items we have talked about in the past. Looking at you, chips that I've spilled all over my floor, you're making this room reek. So we'll dive in. Looks like they're a little bit bigger than your average milk chocolate M&M, so it has a red, a green, and a white color to it. See if we can bite off. Just general milk chocolate in the middle, but a really nice mint flavor. These are really good. These are so good that it's kind of a bummer that they are potentially limited edition items. Because I would eat these, not all the time, but like, that's a good idea every once in a while. But I guess I said that out loud, and I now realize that my argument is flawed because now I can just go buy the crispy mint M&Ms, which were the winner of the crunchy flavor contest or whatever they had. So I guess I can just go buy those. But then those will just remind me that crunchy raspberry lost, and then that won't make me feel very good. I mean, crunchy raspberry was so good. What's wrong? Why didn't you vote? Vote crunchy raspberry. Never forget. While crunchy raspberry will forever live on in my heart, you'll be in my heart. That song from Tarzan. I believe Celine Dion sang it. These are very, very good. I don't know if you're going to be able to find them, but maybe they're on sale up at Target, so check there. Wait, that was only 2. Hang on, you got to eat them in 3s. Eat all M&Ms in 3s. There we go. So there you have your mint M&Ms. I forget that you're not supposed to eat M&Ms with wet hands, because that coloring gets all over it. And now I have minty fresh breath for the rest of the episode. Finally on the show, we'll look forward to this week's new releases. There's nothing on Blu-ray, there are no games, and there is nothing in theaters. It's January, it's New Year's. It's just, it's dead all over the place. The only 2 things that were announced as far as games were concerned were the PlayStation Plus games and the Xbox games with gold. On the PlayStation Plus side, available on the PlayStation 4 are Steep and Portal Knights. On the Xbox side, available today, January 1st, are Celeste for the Xbox One and for the 360 and through backward compatibility on your Xbox One, Lara Croft and the Guardian of Light. On the 16th, WRC 6, that is a mouthful, WRC World Rally Championship 6 comes to the service on Xbox One, and Far Cry 2 hits for the Xbox 360. That is backwards compatible on the Xbox One. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode and supporting all 50 episodes. If you've watched all 50 episodes of this show, of this insanity and this craziness, let me know down in the comments below. You can also let me know if you tried the M&Ms or if you saw Welcome to Marwin. Let me know what you thought of those. Go ahead and scroll on up just a little bit and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video, and be sure to check back every Tuesday for more Week in Review. We'll see you next week.